ITECH Solutions CEO Brian Weiss joins us this week to discuss Datto's new security acquisition, as well as news from HPE and Schneider Electric, plus a special guest interview with SonicWall's VP of Platform Architecture, Dmitriy Ayrapetov. It's ChannelPro Weekly, number 178, Talking to Your SOCs. Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly, episode 178. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and your host of this fine program for folks like you. And who are you? Well, I don't really know who you are off the top of my head, like your name and stuff. It'd be nice if you did send us an email, podcast@channelpronetwork.com, and then I can actually know who you are. But I know what you do. And what you do is you are an IT provider, you're an MSP, you're a VAR, an integrator, an IT consultant, somehow, some way connected to the IT industry. If you do one of those things, you are definitely in the right place. If you work for a local circus guessing people's weight, I don't know what you're going to get out of this show, but we welcome you nonetheless because we love to have everybody here. So welcome one and all. Joining me this week and most weeks is our man of the hour, the man who rocks black on black with black rimmed glasses better than anyone else, executive editor Rich Freeman.
And you know, you're reminding me. I always wanted to run away to the circus. Yeah, there might be a career option there I hadn't considered.
You know, how many circuses are left though? Like, I know that they still exist, but like, do people still just give up their lives and run off and be a carny?
I'm not sure. Probably.
All right. So, Rich, if you were gonna pick the perfect job at a circus to do, what job would you pick?
And, you know, I immediately start kind of working my way up from the bottom. I am not the guy shoveling the elephant dung. Let's go up from there. I'm not doing that. I don't know. I guess what's the guy in the top hat? I can't even think of what that type, but the
ringmaster.
The ringmaster.
Ringmaster.
Exactly. That's got to be the job, right?
So I don't know if I'd want to be the ringmaster. I think if I were going to pick, and we'll ask our guest host who kind of saved your bacon and told you the word you were thinking of here. We'll introduce him in just a second. I think I would take something. I don't want to be in the cages with the lions. I definitely don't want to do that job. I think I want to be like the guy who makes the cotton candy or works in, I don't want to guess people's weight. Maybe like run those crooked games. You know, you got to throw the ball at the milk bottles, but the milk bottles are actually like welded to the table. You know, so like the ball hits it and the ball just like falls off. Maybe something like that. I don't know a lot about carny living, Rich. We need to investigate carny careers and communicate this to our audience. Anyway, we're getting way off topic. Rich, I barely recognize you, by the way. It's been more than a week since we last did a show because we were doing something. Rich, what were we doing?
Well, and in fact, this is kind of where we left off at the very end of our last episode. We encouraged people to join us last week at our latest online summit event, which was last week was March 3rd, and man alive, it went well. I was kind of selling the content. We were talking about it before. Hey, we've got great topics, but genuinely, truly, I was like really, really pleased with the way those sessions came off. So yeah, here we are more than a week later, basking in the glow of how well that went.
Yeah, what was it was a fun event. What was your favorite session?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, I know one of the sessions that got a lot of response from the audience. We had Paul Dipple on from Service Leadership, and just, you know, in 30 solid minutes, he kind of laid out 5 things that separate the best in class MSPs from everyone else. And man, that was really good stuff. And he shared like a worksheet you could use to score yourself again. That was a particular favorite.
Yeah, he is a smart guy. He really knows his stuff.
He really, really does. And it's both because he is very smart and because he has the biggest, best pool of data at his disposal of anyone in the industry. And you kind of put those two things together and it's always going to be an education anytime he's speaking. So that was great. We had our friends Manuel Palachuk and Ryan Buchianico on at the beginning of the show to talk about labor cost management, which is one of those topics that, I mean, everyone knows they're spending more on labor than pretty much anything else, but nobody really kind of thinks very closely about optimizing that number. And they had some handouts, some deliverables too that people were asking for. And just two highlights that happened to leap to mind.
And you convinced me to dress up in costumes and do funny characters, and you don't even mention it as a highlight. How dare you, Rich?
I was gonna give you a chance to bring that up, but that was definitely a highlight too. And I'll set this up for people who are listening now, because the session Matt's talking about came relatively late in the day. So, figure you tuned in the morning, you're riveted to your screen because the content is so great. And the content was very valuable stuff, but it was, it was professional, serious kind of stuff. And then we got to this session, which was also serious in its own way. We had two mergers and acquisitions experts with us, Reed Warren and Linda Rose. Linda has actually been a guest interview on the podcast before. And essentially what they were doing is providing advice on how to accurately assess what your business will be worth when the time comes to sell it. But we wanted to do that in a way that was kind of fun and gave them something specific to react to. So we had Matt pretend to be three different MSPs who were selling their business, and Reed and Linda kind of critiqued, what he told them. And this involved, costumes and costume changes. If you were in the audience after whatever it was, 5 hours, 6 hours of this kind of serious content, all of a sudden on your screen, there's this guy in a transparently fake red beard with an accent talking about popcorn shrimp and whatever came out of Matt's head, in addition to all this, and just the chat in our event platform just blew up, because it was like, what in the world is this? And it was great. That whole session was great because it was both very informative and just a lot of fun.
And I will say a lot of that was off the top of my head. I had a couple kind of jokes planned out that I thought would go over well, but I was mostly just trying to react to what they were asking. And I was just trying to make it look as natural as possible. So I hope everybody found it funny. And I do like doing that kind of stuff because it's fun, and I like being a big goofball. So it was enjoyable. Hopefully there'll be a way where folks can catch that event on demand. I believe we're working on something like that. So maybe you could go and check it out later. Rich, but as we're going to say a lot this year, we've got another event coming up. What's coming up in a couple weeks?
So you're right. We're going to have an event every month, basically, from here on out, through the end of the year. So April 7th, if I've got my timing right, is our first managed services and cloud computing online summit event of 2021. We're actually going to do two of those this year. First one, April 7th. We've got a session on cloud management that I know that's a nightmare topic for a lot of people. We'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about what we're calling kind of next level cloud services. So ideas from, cloud specialists, cloud service providers who are really kind of deep in that area for differentiating services that are going to generate more margin for you. I mentioned Manuel Palachuk and Ryan Buchianico before. They're coming back for another session. This time they're going to be talking about time management because, as Manuel likes to say, time is your widget. If you're an MSP, it's all about time. So they've got some great advice on time management. And so that's just off the top of my head. There's all sorts of great stuff. So check it out. Plenty of time still to register. Plenty of room. It's a virtual event. So events.channelpronetwork.com. Look it up.
Yeah, awesome stuff. I hope we see everybody there. There's also another event that's starting up here very, very soon. If you want to check it out in the meantime, that's the Channel Strong Tour. It's coming to Texas, Louisiana, Florida, and Georgia, March 15th to the 26th. They'll be holding lunch and learns and outdoor MSP community meetups each day. And the goal of those events is to bring the best part of the events that you can't get straight to your backyard. Take a couple hours, grab a beer sandwich, and enjoy a little bit of community connection with your fellow MSP peers. For info and how to register, visit www.mspinitiative.com mspinitiative.com is the URL. Check that out. Well, he's been standing by and very patiently, and I'm very, very glad. Sorry, we couldn't bring him on until just now, but we do have an awesome guest host today. I'm excited to have him on. Our guest started his career in computers in a small shop while attending college, and in 2005, he started ITECH Solutions, which has grown into a security-first MSP, managing a boatload of devices across a whole crap ton of clients. He also actively looks for ways to give back to the community, notable by his involvement in several nonprofits. Please welcome the CEO of ITECH Solutions, Brian Weiss. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. Thank you for being patient and standing by with us there. So if you can start off first by telling us a little bit about you, because I don't think we've ever had you on, so long overdue, I should say. So tell us a little bit about you and about your company.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, I'm 42, which some might consider young or old, so I could probably write a book on me so far, but I'll tell you how I got into computers. It was pretty much high school gaming, networking, computers, worked for a small mom and pop shop, helped them grow from 1 to 3 stores, realized the value in servicing businesses, and I didn't want to service residential anymore. So I went off on my own, kind of as an independent contractor for a few years before I grew and started needing employees. So I started ITECH in 2005, and we actually did web development services all the way until 2000. And I had a business partner. So we split in 2018. He took web development. I stuck with IT. But it's interesting because when I think about my journey and the maturity stages as an MSP, I see, I wasn't always an MSP. I definitely wasn't always the company I am now. You tend to start break fix, then you get into this recurring income kind of more proactive approach with your clients. And my outlook on life and running my business morphed as well as I grew. And it wasn't until about 2016 when I really discovered the MSP community and realized I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like, I've been doing it the hard way. And that's really when I got introduced to a bunch of tools, which is a double-edged sword because now I'm looking at consolidating tools. But yeah, we were growing. We're in a small market, San Luis Obispo, about 250,000 people in the whole county. So that spans about 100 miles. So it's kind of, you're part of that good old boy network as you develop a name. So it's easy to grow in that retrospect, but you're also limited in scalability when it comes to limited market size. So a lot of community involvement, nonprofits. I'm big into education, helping local schools. I have a 10-year-old daughter who I'm very involved in her life, especially with education, which is a struggle for a lot of people with COVID right now. And reversing back, and I know you guys wrote a story on this. In 2018, we had a security incident where we were targeted as an MSP, and that was another kind of life-changing moment for me, where I kind of looked at growing my MSP differently. I realized we had, about 70% recurring income at that time, and I wasn't really doing anything to secure that income. So the focus was back on our clients. I looked at other MSPs as allies instead of competitors, and just became an open book and shared everything I learned and in hopes to learn more from others. Unfortunately, I also looked at our clients as now a shared risk, because if their security isn't up to par, that could be an overnight disaster, and so luckily we're at a size where we can kind of pick and choose our clients now. I know a lot of MSPs are in growth mode where you're trying to take everything you can get to grow and mature as a company. But now I'm even more meticulous when it comes to analyzing the risk tolerance of a potential new client to see if they'll even be a good fit long term. And so I'm in this, since 2018, I've tried to partner and develop relationships with as many vendors as possible. I'm very happy to have developed a relationship with ChannelPro and have an opportunity like this to talk and share my experiences, because I find that, I'm no longer a closed book like I used to be before I found the MSP community. I think a lot of MSPs are kind of still into this. You feel like you have the secret sauce and you don't want to share it with anyone, right? Because you're worried about your competitors stealing your ideas. And I'm a complete opposite. I'll tell you everything we do in hopes that you would adopt maybe some of it if it works for you. Because since we're allies, we're kind of on this front line of this information war we're in. If you think about a traditional war where you send the front line out to kind of go in and infiltrate a physical location, we're kind of that front line preventing threat actors from infiltrating the small, medium business. Sometimes some of us even work with enterprise. And so I feel like, if anything, sharing our knowledge and our experiences with each other and being that open book is going to help us win this war better, right? So I'm happy to be here today and give feedback on any topics that we're going to bring up. And if you want to dive into security a little bit, I've got a lot to share there. Really anything. Like I said, I'm an open book here.
You said that you're you were kind of with a business partner, and you went the MSP route and he went the web development route. I have to ask because I'm really curious. Is he still in business, or did that not work?
So he actually sold that part of the business to one of the employees. But yeah, we started it originally because in 2005, I actually saw like the future is SaaS, right? Everything's going to be web-based. So I wanted to have a development team, and to our dismay, if that's the right word, we also developed our own tools for a long period of time until 2016, before I realized we can't keep up with our needs, right? So I found these other great vendors that already had tools that were proved in the industry and had a lot of things I wanted to add. So we did develop a SaaS company in the education field. Again, I'm big on education. It's continuing education units for different industries. And that was doing really well. So when we parted ways, there was kind of three businesses. He took two, I took one, and then he eventually got rid of web development, and then he's just focusing on the continuing education piece of that.
You alluded to that breach that your company went through some years back, and I should say, Brian was on the cover of ChannelPro last year, and the article really was about that incident and how it changed your business afterwards. And the headline that we kind of put on that was, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So tell folks quickly a little bit about what happened, and then what did you change? Once you had sort of dug yourself out, essentially, what did you change going forward?
I'll try to keep it short. I guess you could read the article for extra details. So ultimately what it came down to is we had an RMM that didn't support MFA at the time. And we recognized that as a concern. And so we were in the process of migrating to about halfway through to a new RMM that we did have MFA with. And unfortunately, we got hit on our old RMM. Too many acronyms in our industry. And so naturally they got in, they were able to have administrator access to desktops of servers and users. They disabled antivirus, deployed ransomware. So it was really, the bomb went off right away. There was very little time to kind of detect and respond before the damage was already happening. And so, Monday morning, and we didn't really have systems in place to really detect a lot of that anyway. Think early 2018, we've got a lot more tools now, especially in the MDR field with SOCs readily available, monitoring your networks for you. So it was a Monday morning situation where we came in and it was one call after another, clients getting hit with ransomware. And at first, because it wasn't in the news that MSPs were getting targeted back then, that wasn't front of mind. It was more like, oh, there's a new ransomware variant that's doing a really good job at hitting clients. So I'm checking Twitter, I'm checking Reddit, I'm checking all the forums, because I'm expecting to see other people complaining about this, and it's crickets. And right about the time I run out of steam to be searching online anymore, one of my engineers comes in and says, hey, I found a really common aspect about all of these clients. They are all still on our old RMM software. And that's when the light bulb went off, and my heart sunk, and I couldn't eat, all the things that come along with realizing you were the threat vector. And luckily we knew the threat vector was our RMM, so we were able to then analyze exactly what the scope was of the damage and create a plan. But we also didn't have a disaster or an incident response plan, like formally done, right? So we had to kind of build one as we went along. And luckily we did have a cybersecurity insurance policy, which we probably wouldn't have had if my mom wasn't my insurance rep, because moms always look out for you. And the minute that policy came out, she's like, you should really have this. So we were lucky in that aspect. However, being early in these kind of targeted incidents with MSPs, the insurance company didn't really have much guidance either. Nowadays, we actually help remediate, and one of the first things you do is get the insurance company in, and they've got teams ready to go, handling all aspects, even a Bitcoin broker ready to pay the Bitcoin. I struggled where I'm like, I don't even have a Bitcoin account. So I'm setting one of those up, and then I can't buy Bitcoin for a certain amount of time until I'm vetted, right? So I'm buying Bitcoin from my cousin in France just to have enough Bitcoin on hand. And there's all these things that MSPs don't have to struggle with now if you run into this. Hopefully you don't, that I did. And it was eye-opening for us. So it was about a 2-week remediation, about $500,000 in total damages, about $250,000 in out-of-pocket losses. And after fighting tooth and nail with my insurance company, they reimbursed us for about $150K. So it was a moment when I realized, okay, we're not taking on any new clients until we get our own house in order, till we get our existing recurring income secured. Out of the 35 clients that got hit, we only technically lost 2 of them because of the event. There is, I think, 1 or 2 others that we parted ways with which we were already kind of down that path with anyway. So it spoke a lot for the relationships we had built with our clients, the transparency we provided during the process. We didn't ghost any of them, and my team. I gotta always throw out kudos to my team, because I couldn't have done it without them. Countless hours got put into remediating it. So we stopped taking on clients for 2 years, literally, and we still grew because there's opportunities with our existing client base, especially around security. And we came out of it just a very hardened MSP, and with a security first mindset, in the sense that every tool that a client uses is a potential security vulnerability. And are we thinking security first with how we implement it, or whether or not we are going to implement it?
It's a fascinating story and an amazing transition, and one that you're probably not alone, and I'm sure there are others out there that have had to learn the hard way and go through that. I want to make sure you did take your mom out to lunch, though, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah. Well, I haven't been able to lately, but my mom definitely is a key player in me surviving that as well, for sure.
Wow, kudos to mom, and definitely make sure a big old basket of flowers ends up on her doorstep every Mother's Day. Well, it's great to have you here, and it's awesome stuff. We're going to link to your story on the website so people can go and they can read that article. So go and open up the show notes for episode 178. You can find it at channelpronetwork.com. If you're watching on YouTube, open up the description area, and we'll put links to all of these things there. And that goes for all of the news stories and other stories we're going to talk about. So definitely have that open, because we're going to just touch the surface and kind of give our reactions. But if you want to get all the details, make sure you hit those articles and read through those. So Rich, we're gonna switch to the news, and we're excited that Brian's here, because I'm sure he's gonna have lots to add on several of these stories, particularly the first one, given that he's wearing a Datto shirt. But Datto has bought somebody, another acquisition story. Rich, how many of these have we done?
Well, you know what, though? What's interesting is we haven't done a whole lot about Datto, which is kind of why this story is significant.
Yeah, and I remember very, very clearly in previous conversations we've had on the show where Datto said, we don't want to be another Me Too in security. We want to do something the Datto way, or different or unique. and they have bought a security. They've done a move to go into the security market. Who did they buy? What's going on with the story?
So, we don't know a whole lot about this company at this point, by the way, but Datto has acquired a cybersecurity vendor called BitDam. This is a company that's headquartered in Israel. They make a solution that is designed to protect cloud-based collaboration tools, Microsoft 365, Google Workspace. It guards against ransomware, malware, phishing attacks. It is supposedly effective against 0 days with previously unknown temperature. So there's some kind of behavior-based sort of aspect to this, or machine learning, or whatever. It doesn't need a blacklist to deal with. I mean, really, that's about what we know about this right now. But you touched on a lot of what makes this story significant, though. So, and I think back immediately to a conversation I had with Tim Weller, their CEO, at the DattoCon event in June 2019. Same day, I spoke about the same topic with Rob Ray, the VP of Business Development over there, and I asked, what is Datto's security strategy? And both of them said that at this point in time, we know security is a need. We know money is being spent on security. We don't really see enough demand, enough willingness to spend on security among SMBs for this to be a big opportunity for us to invest in and encourage our MSP partners to invest in. So right now, we're waiting. We know the day will come when it's time to get into security ourselves. We don't see that day now. So that's June 2019. Late last year, I believe in December, Datto did an online partner event. Tim Weller spoke there. Basically made the same point. A little bit different, a little bit of nuance. He kind of said, we're much closer to the day when it makes sense for us to get in, but we're still kind of waiting for that market opportunity to materialize. Well, the time has come. They have made their first move into security. To your point, Matt, not only has Datto in recent years said multiple times, but I think back all the way back to October 2017, when Datto was first purchased by private equity. And I mean, now, the IPO has happened. They're a publicly traded company. But way back October 2017, I was interviewing Austin McCord, who was the CEO of the company still at that time, and asked, what are your plans around security? And like you said, the answer basically was, if and when we do this, it will be with something different, something special. We're not just going to be another name in this market. I'm quoting something Tim Weller said December of last year when this came up again in that online event. He said, we will change, meaning they'll start getting into security. We will change as soon as we build or find something truly unique, truly compelling, where we think MSPs can make real profit margins and get real protection instead of a marketing story. And they apparently believe BitDam, it is that they have found something to fit into that niche. Time will tell what it is that are going to do with BitDam that kind of meets that characterization. But ConnectWise has been buying up security companies. Kaseya has been buying up security companies. SolarWinds MSP. Of the big four, as we think of them, Datto has been the exception until now, and so this is a very significant moment for them and for their partners.
Brian, you know what the most incredible part of that story is that Rich can just think back to October 2017 and know like exactly who he interviewed, exactly what they said. Like his memory for this stuff is amazing. Rich, I bet you remember if it was raining or if it was sunny and what the temperature was and what the time of day was.
So it was sunny. It was San Francisco. It was a lunch meeting that Datto had put together. Couldn't tell you the temperature, but it was pretty nice. October, San Francisco, and I had soup for lunch. I remember that. I don't remember what kind.
God, I don't even remember what I had for lunch yesterday, as opposed to what I had in October 2017. Your memory is just absolutely amazing. Like you should go on Jeopardy or something. Brian, I'm gonna turn to you because you are clearly a Datto partner, or at least somehow found a Datto shirt at a local Salvation Army or Goodwill. What's your reaction to their long anticipated move into security?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the partner advisory board. I pretty much use all their products. I love Datto. I've become friends with many of the employees over there. You know, and it's something that, you know, being a security first MSP and having that event happen to me is back into 2018, I've really been pushing, you know, Datto. And I think even initially it was just a, hey, buy this company, buy that company, like, you know, because I see things that Datto buys, they really put time into developing them and improving them. And so naturally, when I find a tool that I think I like, I want the Datto name on it because I know it's going to have a good roadmap associated with it, and it's only going to continue to improve. And it was interesting because it wasn't until I did that enough to where I finally, kind of to what Rich said earlier, was told, you know, we're not in the market to just buy up companies to increase our market share and to say that we provide security, right? Which is what I see other vendors doing. You know, if you're lacking a certain area or a market that you can't fulfill, you're just buying another company. And then sadly, I see certain things happen where they don't really do much with the product after they buy it, other than maybe require 3-year contracts or raise the price, or, you know what I mean? There's not a lot of innovation going into the product. And so when you know, I've had these discussions with Datto, they really want to have something that's going to make them a differentiator in the industry, and it's going to add value. Like, it's more than just buying up market share and saying they do this now, right? And so I actually, I respected that answer completely. And I was like, I get it now. And so naturally I backed off. You know, I still mention tools that I think are cool, but I'm not sitting, you got to buy this now. You know, it's not that old conversation. And, you know, I've been using BitDam for probably about 3 months. And I'm actually very impressed with it. When you think about the security landscape, or the threat landscape, I should say, you know, a lot of it's traditionally been around email, right? Getting those phishing emails that come in, and, you know, leading to eventually maybe a ransomware infection. And but it's changing. I mean, we've got unified communications now. We're not just using email anymore. We've got Zoom calls like this. I could send you a link or a file in the Zoom chat, and someone on the call is going to think, oh, that's safe. Let me click on it. Let me download and install that. We have file sync and share services now, right? SharePoint, Box, Datto Workplace, you know, a lot of these big names where you're not necessarily sharing attachments as files in emails that an email security might normally scan. It's a file link that links to something that might have something malicious, right? And so when you think about that, that's a new vector that threat actors are looking at, seeing the growth and use there, right? And they're figuring out ways to infiltrate that space. And so what I loved about BitDam is that it's not just email security. And I look at it as more of an ATP product than I would call it like security, advanced threat protection, in the sense that it does a lot more. Similar to, you know, kind of, you know, Microsoft's ATP, or some of these EDR products out there, where they're doing more than just detecting, they're also responding, right? And then if you have a SOC behind it, you can take that even further. You know, when I use BitDam, and I set it up, it's kind of a hands-off product from there, the way that it works. It's not a spam filtering product. You're not dealing with spam. You know, we use Microsoft, we're a Microsoft shop, so we let the Office 365 security handle spam management and junk mail. It's just, you know, so they're not trying to be another email security product that's also dealing with spam. They're looking for actual threats, and they're analyzing the emails. They're looking for, you know, thumbnails in the emails with vendor logos. Are they impersonated? Are they authentic? They're looking at the links in the emails. Where do those go? Where do they go from there? They literally build out kind of a map of what this email would do if someone clicked on all the links. They're trying to look for impersonation details. They even include screenshots of, if you clicked on that link, what would the page look like? So in BitDam, I can actually see a screenshot of what the page looks like without even having to click on the link. And so and they map it out visually too. So it's almost like an EDR for, email, unified communications, and file sync and share services. And so, and what I mean by hands off is I installed it and I saw it doing its thing. You could put it in like an audit mode where it doesn't make any changes, and then you switch it to live mode and it actually starts blocking things that it thinks are malicious. But my first question was like, so what am I supposed to do with this now? And they're like, well, it's doing its job. You don't have to do anything. Like, it's blocking all of this stuff from coming in. And I'm like, well, what about whitelist and blacklist? Like, do I need to worry about that? No, we don't deal with that at all. That's handled by your primary, email management platform, which most of them, if you're using even G Suite or Microsoft, they have built-in capabilities for that. So why duplicate those efforts in a separate pane of glass that your end users now have to manage, right? So, it was kind of that aha moment for me, realizing, we've got this struggle around advanced threat protection for not just email, but these other programs that we're rolling out to clients. And how do I manage that without taking on a situation where I've got to eat up a bunch of resources or time, right? We talked about time earlier, right? It's people say time is money, but I'm hearing now money is time. If you can limit the amount of time you have to spend on something, there's more money. I guess it works either way. But so with security, that's always a concern, is you're going to put security in. How is it going to affect the end user? How much time is it going to waste for them? How much time are you going to waste managing the product, deploying it, making sure it's even working? So I'm very impressed with it. And I think another thing to point out too is that Datto does recognize that the future is cloud. I mean, technically cloud is here now, but networks are getting thinner, right? We're relying on wireless more. Most devices don't even come with NIC cards anymore, where you can physically plug in a network card. So unless you have a docking station that supports that, you're more relying on wireless. And so even security, I see network security moving out into the cloud more, where you're having a lot of that processing power you might expect your firewall to be doing, handing that out to the cloud, especially with everyone working from home and the fact you can't have a firewall at everyone's home processing that traffic. So I saw this as a very smart move for Datto to be able to get into security with something that's out of the box, ready to go for the cloud, and handling a lot of these services that we don't really have support for right now.
I got to say, this is really fascinating for me. As some people in our audience have probably just discovered, if you go out to BitDam.com, at least this was true last night when I was trying to write about this. If you go to BitDam.com, you immediately get dumped onto Datto.com, and there wasn't really BitDam product information. So I really couldn't research the product very much beyond what was available in a press release. And so it's actually really interesting to talk to somebody who has used it. But before we move on to the next story, a quick question, obvious question for MSPs. Is it multi-tenant today, or is that something they're going to have to add?
That's a question for me.
Yes.
Yes. It is multi-tenant. The reason that that I understand and why Datto has kind of put the brakes on getting people immediately signed up for it is because they don't want it to just be a product that they're buying for more market share. They want to immediately add more value to it. They want to integrate it with things like their own SSO, right? That's a big push for Datto right now with identity security. And real quick too, I would argue that their first security move was actually the ransomware detection in Datto RMM, right? Which of course wasn't buying a company, but it was adding security detection of ransomware, which I've talked to a lot of SOCs, and their biggest concern is that someone infiltrating a network and immediately deploying ransomware, or I should say, disabling the antivirus and immediately deploying ransomware. Because a lot of these SOCs depend on the detection aspect of an antivirus product to then fire off the understanding that they need to start logging every little thing that's happening and looking at all the network traffic. There's so much network traffic a SOC has to look at, and there's so many false positives. They rely heavily on that next gen AV to do its job. And so if someone gets in, disables that, your SOC is kind of rendered almost useless to be able to react in a quick manner. They're not useless in general, but just to be able to have that normal quick reaction. So I have SOCs telling me that's what keeps them up at night. Someone getting in, immediately disabling antivirus, immediately deploying ransomware. And if you've got this ransomware detection built into the RMM, that essentially helps fill that hole to at least give you that detection that your antivirus wouldn't have normally given you. But back to the BitDam, yeah, I've got a lot of people talking to me too, saying, hey, I want to sign up. I can't sign up yet. And it is, you know, I do feel there is a more value that Datto can offer. It is multi-tenant out of the box. But I know they like to wrap their name around it, brand it, make it feel like it's not just a product they bought for market share.
Excellent. We're going to keep an eye on that and see how they integrate that in and roll with that. It was also interesting to discover that you have long conversations with your SOCs. I usually just put mine on my feet and go on with my day and don't get too involved with them. But also interesting stuff to learn. Everybody's different, Rich. Everybody's got their own thing.
I think we're all having conversations with unexpected others over the course of the last year. SOCs, why not?
Why not? Why not?
Well,
anything that'll keep you company. You know, you can draw like a little, you know, eyeballs on them and, you know, a smiley face, and, you know, they could be your companion if you're stuck somewhere alone.
In all fairness, I think I do have a pair of SOCs from almost every channel vendor out there. They're very popular giveaway.
Get them all together and you could have a big conference, you know, your own little private tech SOC conference. Good stuff. Excellent. Well, it's really interesting to learn about BitDam too. So Rich, your amazing record of getting like just the right person on to a particular episode continues, because it's really uncanny how lucky we are.
It is very. This is like a recurring theme, Brian. That, you know, because we arranged that you would be on the show weeks ago. I didn't know Datto had bought BitDam until yesterday, and it just turned out to be perfect. You're not only a Datto partner, you're actually a BitDam user. So yeah, wow, we get lucky.
We sure did, but we've got more to cover, Rich. So Hewlett Packard Enterprise is in the news this week. They've added some bare metal and SMB-friendly purchasing options to GreenLake. What's that all about?
So, you know, they made some product enhancements to the GreenLake product, and some changes in terms of where you can procure it, which we'll get into, and that's all very important. From a bigger picture standpoint, I think what's significant about this is that it's a sign that GreenLake, you know, over time is continuing to get deeper and deeper into the channel and to work its way deeper and deeper into SMB. So GreenLake is Hewlett Packard Enterprise's, you know, as a service infrastructure offering. So think about it as private cloud infrastructure that you would deploy and utilize more or less like any other physical infrastructure, but you're loading cloud services onto it that you're getting via HPE, and you're paying for all of that on an as-a-service usage-based or in a usage-based kind of way, you know, instead of paying for everything up front. And the idea is there are a lot of customers out there, a lot of businesses out there that like the convenience and the flexibility of the cloud model, but they're not willing or able to go all the way into public cloud. So this is why a lot of people, not just HPE, think hybrid cloud is going to be kind of the way of the future for a while. And this GreenLake solution can be an essential element in that hybrid kind of strategy. When HPE first rolled it out, they just sold it direct, you know, mostly to large businesses. June 2018, they opened it up to the channel, but it was still more of a big business kind of play. Sometime later, they said, okay, we're going to start doing some things around pricing and configuration options that make it more appealing to mid-market. there's been more of that going on, and a lot of what they announced this week, I think, is about accelerating that. So from a product standpoint, the big thing that they've added is the ability to purchase and pay on a usage basis for bare metal resources. So they were supporting virtual machines before, they were supporting containers before. Now, if you just need bare metal, you can purchase that as well, pay for it as a service. On the containers, they expanded the range of scaling options available to you. So now there are smaller, sort of lower cost entry points on containers. Similar sort of thing with VMs. They now have some pre-configured, kind of standardized VM blocks, collections of VMs that you can purchase with 4, 8, 12, or 16 compute nodes. And again, the idea is supposed to be a little bit easier for a smaller business to get into, collect, or attract some more SMBs to the product. To make learning about the product and procuring the product easier, it is now, GreenLake is now available through cloud marketplaces operated by most of the big names in distribution. Now, you could get GreenLake capacity through distributors before, but you had to pick up the phone or something, talk to a rep. Now, if you go into, say, the Ingram Micro or the Tech Data Cloud Marketplace, you will see GreenLake resources listed alongside AWS and Microsoft Azure. And from an HPE standpoint, this is important because there are a lot of partners out there who aren't familiar with GreenLake, and they're kind of hoping this will, the first thing they do is go to the marketplace when they're looking for something cloud related. They're hoping they'll be able to see this now and maybe investigate it. You can't actually, worth quickly mentioning, you can't actually complete the purchase process through the marketplace, but you can size the solution, research the solution, then pick up the phone and talk to somebody and make the actual purchase. And at some point down the road, you'll be able to do it all online. So just in terms of that picture of getting deeper into the partner space, deeper into SMB and so on, 830 partners, according to HPE, offer GreenLake to their clients right now. Their partner base is growing 60% on a year-over-year basis every quarter, so they're adding a lot of partners every quarter to the product. They started out, it was, like I said, it was all direct. Now, 29% of their GreenLake revenue comes through partners, and that's growing very rapidly. That's up from 18% a year ago. And SMB partners, and again, SMB didn't really even enter the picture until relatively recently. SMB partners now generate 30% of that partner-led GreenLake revenue, and that number is growing very rapidly. That's up 20 points in the last year. It was 10% of channel revenue a year ago. So partners playing a bigger role in GreenLake, SMB customers and partners playing a bigger role, and now we're really starting to see HPE shape the product specifically for SMBs to make it easier for them to adopt.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Hopefully people, when they're looking at those marketplaces, don't think GreenLake has something to do with phishing. But it is a big push into SMB. Now, Brian, do you do a lot of GreenLake for your customers yet, or is this something that is now interesting to you because they are kind of forming it more towards smaller clients?
So, I mean, when it comes to, servers, we're primarily a Dell shop. So we haven't worked with HP too much. And then when we talk about, cloud virtualization, compute resources, we're, Azure VMs is the path we go there. But it is interesting because there's plenty of reasons why someone couldn't use something like an Azure VM or even AWS resource, some of the popular ones out there. And, it could be from a clean room that has to be offline, can't be connected to the network. It could be, regulatory compliance where they can't send certain data over public networks. It has to be, all internal. I've got one client that works with AT&T and Verizon, and they can't even access their resources unless it's through their own internet connection, where they have full control of all the traffic from point A to point B, right? And so that gets a lot trickier when you're out in a shared cloud environment. But the compute model looks interesting, right? Because, I mean, typically with when you have these restrictions, you're looking at more of a CapEx expense every time you're upgrading your servers, right? And you don't know what your growth might look like. And you really kind of would rather, make this an operational expense where you're paying for compute and you have flexibility to grow at any rate that you want, because you know you're only getting charged for your actual, compute usage. So I do, some questions come to mind, like, obviously you have to initially size the environment. And what happens when you outgrow that size? My thoughts are they would send you new hardware, but what's that transition look like? Because there are still some limitations when you're dealing with bare metal environments, right? So I think it's interesting. I think there's definitely a space for it, and it's I'm glad to see that they're understanding that even the SMB market has a need for this, and they're starting to reach into that market.
Yeah, very, very cool. Well, Rich, I know there's probably not a whole lot there to talk. There's a lot of quotes and a lot of data in here and a lot of interesting info. So why don't we direct folks to go check out that news story and read through all the details there. But we do want to get to one other news story before we cut to an awesome interview coming up. Schneider Electric is launching a new managed power partner program. Rich, tell us about that.
Yeah, this is an interesting opportunity for MSPs, actually. So Schneider Electric, they some years back they purchased APC. So if you're familiar with APC power products, those products are now available through Schneider Electric. So we're essentially talking about the APC people. And they just this week introduced a new kind of like track or segment within their partner program specifically for providers of managed power services. Now, if you and they are making this, they emphasize that this is something that's appropriate for, open to pretty much anybody. So if you are a VAR today, you don't do managed services, but you want to get into managed services, they've got information and instruction for you that will help you maybe turn managed power into your first managed service. If you are an existing MSP and you're looking for new revenue sources and you're not doing managed power today, they're saying we've got stuff for you too. We'll kind of teach you how to do it and allow you to add a new revenue stream by managing power. And in no way do you need to be a power quality, a power gear expert in any way to get into this. So if you're not really dealing with UPSs or PDAs a whole lot now, that's okay. And in fact, a lot of the ways, a lot about how they design this program is really designed to compensate for that kind of thing and sort of hold your hand. So in terms of requirements and qualifications, it's again, they're casting the net very broadly. So really all you have to do to get to the entry level select tier in that program is complete a pretty basic kind of education course. At that point, you can register deals and protect deals with them. If you take a somewhat more rigorous course, which is going to teach you more about managed power and from both a technical and a sales standpoint, you can rise up to the premier level in the program. At that point, you get a partner success manager assigned to you. You qualify for rebates that kick in at various milestones along the lifetime or life cycle of the power quality products. You also get access to what they're calling an MSP architect. So there is some of a learning curve in getting a managed power service up and running, and they have people who will kind of walk you through that, help you create a blueprint and execute the blueprint. All of this is in relation to a product set that Schneider rolled out, I want to say last year, but it may have been earlier than that. It's called their Edge Software and Digital Services Suite. And it's basically a series of monitoring, management, repair offerings, sort of, managed power kinds of tools that have been out there. All vendor agnostic, by the way. They're not arming you just to manage APC stuff. Whatever your customer is using is probably going to be compatible with it. And so this partner program is designed to get more partners aware of and selling their own suite of products, and then making money off of managed power generally. Because right now, so Schneider estimates that there's $160 billion being made in managed power now. But they found a data point in a SolarWinds MSP study that said only 27% of IT providers do any managed power. So there's money being made. There's a lot more money to be made, and very few IT providers really are doing that right now. And so they're looking to kind of lower that barrier to entry, get more partners involved in managed power. And they say that the companies that do that, that make the investment to set up a managed power practice, collect 1.5 times the original value of a power deal over the life cycle of that hardware. So there is, real incremental money to be made here.
Brian, you do a lot of managed power. You know what? Well, before I ask that question, hold on. Why is it that every time I hear about these partner programs and tiers, why do you not get a partner success manager until you're already basically successful?
I think the issue is not so much that you've got to clear their success bar before they do that, but you have to sort of clear their investment bar. Because it's very easy to sign up for this program and that program, and then if they immediately assign you a partner success manager, that's expensive for them. So they kind of want to know that you mean it. You're really interested in them before they start giving you the stuff that really costs them money.
But okay, but it seems like if you sign up, they would want you to be successful and they would help you be successful before you're successful. That's just my take on it. I don't know. I've always found that rather confusing. Brian, do you do a lot of managed power?
Yes, and more each day. This is something that Datto was actually helping us with their managed power line. And unfortunately, due to manufacturing limitations, it looks like they're putting that on hold for a while. So naturally, I bought up like 50 of these things to have in stock. But when I read this article, the light bulb went off, because in my talks with Datto, they're very vendor agnostic, and they understand we want single panes of glass. So the idea is, rather than reinvent the wheel and create your own managed power product, why not integrate with ones out there that are already saturated in the market and that have a lot more buying power, especially when it comes to manufacturing limitations. So, I see this as, I've always liked APC and, Schneider Electric. I've always liked their products. I haven't liked how clunky they are to manage. They never really had a cloud management capabilities, right? And now I think they're seeing the need for that. And if you look at, back to the money is time. I mean, one of the things that we typically do the most truck rolls on is, internet's down. We got to reboot equipment, or, there's some power issue happening where something's not, powering on for whatever reason. And to be able to have insight at that layer, right, which I guess is what, layer 0, if you're looking at the OSI model, right? Power, you got to power the device before you even get into layer 1.
Any computer without electricity is just a paperweight.
Yeah, and so you're now having, I guess that we'll key that term here on this. You now have management of layer 0, when it comes to power. And for us, it's been great, because we even, with COVID too, we're trying to avoid on-site visits for obvious reasons. So if we can do something that we normally had to do on-site remotely through some sort of cloud management, because it has to do with power, we're all in, and our clients 9 times out of 10 are all in, right? And so it's a very easy sale. I see other advantages too, in just power management in general, understanding what their usage is, and how, whether or not we could look at savings there. In fact, one client that had like 15 servers, we did a kind of manual, because we didn't really have power management capabilities to do automatic reporting, but we did kind of some manual estimated reporting on what they were spending on electricity, and consolidated them down to literally 2 physical servers with a bunch of virtual, guests on them. And, just in the power savings, and let alone the management of that is so much less now that they don't have all these physical boxes. That was one aspect of our selling point. Oh, by the way, here's your power consumption estimated with these, and you're also going to see a savings there. Right. So when I hear that 1.5 times multiplier, I'm curious how they came up with that. But I see a lot of different variables there. There's, how much are you potentially saving on electricity by being able to see how much power you're consuming, and looking for ways to lower that, especially as the cost of power is going up. Electricity in California is skyrocketing, right? You have MSPs and service providers that normally have to spend resources, labor, time, dealing with issues because of power issues that you can now do remotely. There's savings there. And then naturally you have markup on products and, the managed service itself. So there's a lot of different aspects that go into what could actually equal, a profit at the end of the day.
So would you say for others who are not really invested in managed power that that's something that they definitely want to look at?
100%. If anything, an MSP just avoiding truck rolls, being able to manage, rebooting equipment remotely. I mean, at the very least. And then I would ask an MSP, how burdensome is it to be managing all the UPSs that you have on site? And when their batteries fail, typically you don't know a battery fails unless you have the software running on the computer, typically hooked up with a USB cable. And we all know how reliable USB is. Or if you've planned ahead and put a network card in the UPS, which is a lot more expensive, maybe you're monitoring via the network. But I could see managed power being a situation where they've got automated battery replacements built into it as well, right? And so that you're not having to reactively address that. It's more of a proactive approach, keeping battery life cycles up to date.
Very, very interesting stuff. So check that out. Well, Rich, in the interest of time, I think we're going to go ahead and move on. We've got an exciting interview lined up. We're going to be speaking with Dmitriy Ayrapetov, the Vice President of Platform Architecture at SonicWall. We're going to be talking about security threats, market trends, and all kinds of good stuff that you will absolutely want to know. Brian will be joining us for that as well. Stick around. We will be right back. Security is never something that's done, but always a moving target as new threats emerge. Staying on top of these is crucial to protecting your clients. Joining us now is a product management leader with 15 years of experience in cybersecurity. Please welcome Dmitriy Ayrapetov, VP of Platform Architecture at SonicWall. Welcome, Dmitriy.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
It's great to have you here. If you can, tell us a little bit about you and kind of how you arrived at where you are today.
It all started more than 2 decades ago. I'll tell you, I like to share this anecdote. What got me into cybersecurity is in the dorms, I sent a game that was Trojaned to a friend of mine, and I took complete control over his computer, and then I called him. And then I was talking to him, and then I had his computer pop up messages that were relevant to our phone conversation. And I heard his voice gradually slow down and take a more and more serious tone as he was very confused why his computer was telling him, Ben, keep quiet, don't tell him that I'm talking to you. At some point I let him know, but that kind of that kicked it off. And since then I've been in several companies. One got acquired by SonicWall. I was an engineer at SonicWall, ran product at SonicWall, and it's an exciting field. Here I am almost 2 decades later in the cybersecurity world.
Well, awesome. And so you've been at SonicWall for a while now. Tell us a little bit about what you do at SonicWall.
Right now, I'm VP of Platform Architecture, and I do a few things. One, I run one product, a specific product that has to do with ATP and bringing some of our ATP technology out to the market. And then I also work with the product team on building up how our products work together, and I help our company get the voice out and educate the world about cybersecurity topics. Not necessarily about what SonicWall does. We're a solution provider, but just in general, there's so much happening in the world of cybersecurity. It's changing yearly, if not every 6 months, and just that's part of the excitement, is keeping up with the topic. But it's also part of the job. For me, is taking that technical information and then translating that into what does it mean, what is it going to mean in the future, and what's the impact today.
So you mentioned that it was kind of like a game that you put a Trojan in and sent to a friend. That kind of got you going. But I understand you are an avid gamer when time allows. What kind of games do you play? What do you do?
It's whatever the kid schedule allows. I don't know if I'm allowed to. I'm not plugging a product. I don't have any financial incentive with the product. But one of the most fascinating games that I finished recently is called Disco Elysium. It's a RPG game. I strongly recommend it. It's amazing.
Yeah, good one. Any other genres you play? I'm also kind of an avid gamer as well.
I do have my Thrustmaster HOTAS set up for for DCS flight simulator, so the full-on throttle stick. I used to have a VR headset, I got rid of it. So flight simulators, RPGs, and tactical strategy games. That's my jam.
Wow, are you a big Warhammer guy? Or
No, I kind of missed that, and I'm scared to get into it.
yeah, it's a lot of DLC. I'm just gonna tell you that right now.
There's certain topics where I'm like, you know what, I just don't have the bandwidth to get into it, and certain things like I've avoided strategically in my life, like World of Warcraft. I don't do drugs like that, so.
Awesome. Yeah, Rich is also an avid gamer. I think he's a big what game do you play, Rich? Pong? Is that your game of choice?
Yeah, or video solitaire.
Awesome. So Brian, are you a gamer?
I am. That's what got me into computers in the first place, and how I learned networking is LAN parties. And so I'm more of a first-person shooter gamer, but I do mainly because I don't have a lot of time to game. So I don't really have time to dedicate to some of the more strategic games, which I do enjoy. In the past, I've been a big, Sim City guy, building cities and things like that. So right now, my main game I play is Halo, basically. Looking forward to the new version coming out, which was supposed to come out last winter. So we'll see what happens there.
Do you remember that magical feeling of first getting two computers connected for a multiplayer game? For me, it was Command and Conquer on a local network, and it's like mind blown, right? That I can play against my brother now in the other room. Yep. Yeah, that's something to relive.
Yeah, my first was Warcraft 2. We had some computers strung together with serial cables because it didn't actually support like networking at the time. But yeah, that was a fun one. I do remember that. Awesome stuff. So the primary reason you're here is really to talk about well, not video games, but we could certainly go on with that for all day if we wanted to, but to talk about kind of the security landscape and threats that are kind of happening out there today. So what is your take on, what are you guys seeing in terms of some of the latest threats?
I mean, that's a big question.
I like to ask the big ones.
Yes. Are you sure you have enough time for this? No, but let me focus on a few things, and I'll mention obviously ransomware. No podcast, no security conversation can be had without mentioning ransomware. But it is topical because you all see what's happening with the cryptocurrency prices, and the two cybersecurity kind of tools, cryptojacking and ransomware, go hand in hand with the prices of cryptocurrency. The higher prices of cryptocurrency, the more it attracts people to be able to do these things. And then ransomware over the past several years has evolved into a dual operation. It's a ransom, encrypt your data. Two is extort. So, and that extortion angle that levers up the pressure to pay the ransom, that's been, it's obviously a new tool in Arsenal for the past year and a half. And we're monitoring what that does, for example, to company. There's a certain segment in the market, right? Like think anybody who deals with sensitive data, but is not armed to the teeth with cybersecurity professionals, right? You think local governments, schools, healthcare, lots of data that can be extorted, that can be levered into a ransom because of regulatory impact if I leak that data. And yet they don't have a team of 10 SWAT commandos, cybersecurity commandos waiting to drop in any moment. And then of course, I want to say supply chain, but it's not because I want to ride the wave. It's only to highlight the fact that the supply chain SolarWinds thing, that's not new. This was just the biggest recent one. Supply chain attacks go pre-computer days, right? Like in the Cold War, espionage, etc. What's interesting and what we in cybersecurity should be aware of is the fact that the proverbial flashlight is shining on this area right now. Just like with side channel attacks 3 years ago, right? The first paper got published, and then the next 2 years, there is a paper published every month because people are looking into that space. I expect a similar thing with side channel attacks. And what that means is, yes, SolarWinds got, huge things, spying operation, highly resourced, highly sophisticated, but now there will be copycats. And I personally, like, what keeps me up at night, and the way that I will get ransomware or a Trojan one day will be, look at the bottom of your monitor right now and look at all the utilities that it might be running, all the things in your tray bar. Think of all the techies who know better, all the tech people who, IT people, developers, right, who they need to run this utility. They like this editor, they like this tool, right? And they download all these things, and it's trivial to compromise those. Kind of like coming back to that example of the game that I, started the conversation with, right? What is to prevent, like, I'll pick one tool that I rely on, the Rufus USB key builder, right? I tinker with computers, I need a boot USB, Rufus, right? And I'm not picking on Rufus here, right? But what if that got Trojaned or compromised? That's going to happen, not that it's going to happen with Rufus, but it's going to happen with some tools that we are going to be highly cognizant, and we urge people to be highly cognizant of the supply chain attacks, but not in the sense of SolarWinds, but in the sense of the tools that people run on their machines, especially in this remote world environment where, it's not the IT, it might not be the 100% locked down IT environment.
I'm going to reinforce that last point. And I think I may even have mentioned this on the podcast a couple of months ago when the SolarWinds story broke, but I still distinctly remember reading about what happened at SolarWinds, and immediately, like, the first thing that popped into my head was a conversation we had July of last year, well before the world knew about SolarWinds. And the last question I asked you was, what is the threat that keeps you up at night? And your answer was supply chain attacks. And just a few months later,
Yeah.
it was vividly illustrated why that's the case. So let's talk. The elephant in the room, obviously, still a year later, is COVID-19. So the threat landscape was a nightmare before the pandemic. How has the coronavirus changed the security situation?
I think from the biggest change in my view has been kind of operational. I mean, obviously the security world is broken up into two parts. There's the pure security, detect the threat, identify the threat, right? What is the threat? How does it evade? The threat centric. The other part of the conversation is kind of operational, right? You can have a super sophisticated tool or a threat detection tool, but if it's unusable or it's super complicated to use, only 1% of the world will use it. The other side of that operational side is, how do you actually roll out security? How do you operate? And frequently operational side may even, like, when push comes to shove, I have to keep my business running, the operational side may win out. So one of the things that we saw is obviously, the move to remote access. And there's I'm not going to try to do the Monty Python impression, I'm not dead yet, right? But there's the whole VPN, I'm not dead yet skit where people dusted off their VPN appliances. And yes, there's been a massive migration to cloud, which is a separate conversation, but the people needed remote access. So a lot of the security challenges were around the operational sides. Like, you dusted off that VPN device, has it been patched, right? Or do you have the capacity? Or now you have people connecting, you don't. I spoke with a customer that they had 3,000 users, but only 500 were set up for remote work. So all of a sudden, overnight, they had to have 3,000 people working remotely. You can't hand out 3,000 devices overnight. So now they might be connecting from that Windows 7 laptop that's shared by the family, right? And now, how do you, as a company with whatever regulatory domain you're under, how do you allow people to connect to you from whatever they have at home? And then now their home is effectively an extension of your enterprise. And how do you deal with that? What Linksys router from 2005 with Linux 2.2 are they running at home, right? So a lot of the lessons learned were really about how to clamp down and batten down the hatches operationally. VPN, how do you provide secure VPN? I think the hero of last year has been multi-factor authentication. Or if anything, the pain that a lot of people have gone through is they've learned to appreciate the value of multi-factor authentication, because on the cloud side, as a lot of services did shift into the cloud, what I like to say is, with cloud access, if you are running and you don't have multi-factor authentication, the username and password of the least security conscious person in your organization is now the firewall to your company. Like, let that sink in, right? All I have to do is just steal the credentials of the least security conscious person in your company. I don't need to break into your firewall and break into your web server. I just go in and I log into your O365 or your, whatever instance. So MFA, became critical. Zero trust networking obviously is, a big topic right now, and that's a mindset of how to design networks, and that I think really was brought forward. There was a funny comic strip that I saw that was like 3 bar charts, and it was like, what was the reason that you did digital transformation and zero trust networking? And it was like board requirement or regulatory requirement, and the massive one was COVID-19. And that's been the driver for all this. So anyway, I can go on and on, but I want to see if that at least lays the groundwork for the security conversation from like, what we saw last year.
Yeah, I've got something to add too, just from an MSP's perspective. We've got this battle of essentially security versus convenience, right? And you touched on some good points earlier, that a lot of the really good security products out there in the enterprise space, they aren't always easy to deploy, to manage. They don't give you the best end user experience. There's a lot of change there where you're losing convenience. So when I look at COVID, last year, and to your point about not everyone being ready to work from home, there was sacrifices of security for convenience.
When push comes to shove,
that had to be made,
you have to keep
right?
the business running, right? Yeah.
So it was a heyday for all these threat actors out there when we have this huge population going to work from home. A lot of opportunities for them, right? For the threat actors, this is a business for them. Like this is a market. There's going to be a point in time in the future where this makes more money than the oil and gas industry, cybercrime. And, so to understand that, they're looking for ways to grow their business, right? These threat actor groups. And when they see this COVID opportunity, that's an opportunity for them where they've got more customers that they can easily reach out to, right? And so I think that's the challenge we have as an MSP, is educating our clients that, hey, we're going to try to make a balance of security and convenience, but we can't give up too much security to give you the convenience that you feel like you had in the past and feel like you need now, right? There's got to be some give and take there.
Absolutely. And, I will let me add to that, and that what we see, and I'll steal a phrase from a colleague of mine, that security needs to be abstracted away from the user. Right, and that's part of and that's at the heart of that tug of war between convenience and security, right? If a product can abstract the security away, or if a deployment of a product can abstract security away from the user, because that user, their finance, their sales, their HR, they have their job to do. Their primary job is not security. Their primary job is getting their own function done, right? So they need to not have to think about security. It needs to be in the background. It needs to be there. But Brian, you're absolutely right. It's just like when push comes to shove, you got to keep the business running. Just hopefully not giving up too much security in the process.
So to that point, because like you were saying, Brian, I mean, in the early days of work from home, people made decisions that, in a lot of cases they knew weren't wise because they had to get people working. So here we are a year later. There's been time for MSPs and other IT providers out there to clean up some of those problems. I assume some of the threats that were rampant early on, like maybe RDP exploits or something like that, are maybe less common now. One year into this, how have things changed? What are maybe the persistent challenges or emerging challenges that you're seeing now?
Yeah, the initial cleanup of, again, RDP, open RDP, one of the most egregious mistakes that I saw in that tug of war of operational versus security was people opening up direct RDP access through the firewall ports, and that was just a big boon to ransomware. I see Brian shaking his head. That's kind of been cleaned up. I think right now what people are what I see, and I'll give you anecdotal data, right? Because I don't know, it's hard to get industry view right now on this. Just what we see with our customers is kind of retaining that visibility, regaining visibility into network traffic or into what people are doing. And yes, you can. So there's a shift now, like with people outside, your corporate boundary, you don't have as much visibility into what they do, right? Or you might not have as much control. So the shift has been a little bit more to maybe client and cloud control. So the importance of client security has become enormous, or much more than it was, a year ago, because client is kind of the primary corporate presence in the remote world, unless you issue firewalls or whatever access points to everybody, but that's not 100% realistic. And then I think people have adapted. Right now, I think we're back to that kind of equilibrium of ransomware, phishing, that initial feeding bonanza that Brian alluded to when during that shift. That's kind of over now, so we're back to the normal background noise. But again, that background ransomware will continue to be a threat. And yeah, I think we're back to kind of, let me summarize, sorry. We're kind of back to normal background noise. Things have stabilized. People have gotten used to it. I think, ransomware will continue to be a threat, and credential theft will continue to be the massive threats right now.
One of the challenges that we have as MSPs with the work from home has to do a lot around privacy laws too. And we're in California, and whether they're accessing, hopefully not from a personal device at home to their company resources, or bringing a company device home to then access company resources, they're on a non-company owned network, right? It's a personal network, and it has other devices on it, right? IoT, Xboxes, things like that. And while our first thought as an MSP is, let's put our firewall we use at their office at home, there are issues with that, because we're now scanning and managing traffic that there's privacy issues with, right? We shouldn't be seeing that. Or we're now having to troubleshoot and figure out why someone's Xbox can't download an update because of this new firewall we put in, and it's outside the scope of even our normal services, So I'm really looking forward to companies like SonicWall come up with ways to help us with that kind of work from home, where we know that we can secure the traffic to company resources, even though it's on a network that's not managed by us, right?
So one of the solutions for that, and I didn't pay Brian to ask that question, just one of the things that we've discussed, and again, the adoption of it is kind of depends on the risk profile of the organization, is what think of it as a security island. And you're 100% right. Like people's kids downloading Fortnite cheats on a laptop on the same network as dad's or mom's financial data, right? And half of those Fortnite cheats are actually Trojans. So one of the solutions that we've suggested to our customers has been a Wi-Fi island, like a security island, right? So imagine you have an access point that's on the operational side, it's zero touch provision, meaning that you don't have to visit somebody's home. You don't have to start dealing with their home network. You just give them an access point and you tell them plug it in. People know how to do that. And at that point, it connects to the cloud, it registers and sees, hey, I belong to Dmitriy, right? And it connects to Dmitriy's management console and inherits the settings. And it says, I'm going to build a tunnel from the access point to the corporate network, and I'm going to build out corporate Wi-Fi at home, at Dmitriy's home. So now Dmitriy, who has never worked from home before, he always works in the office and connects to corporate Wi-Fi. He now sees corporate Wi-Fi at home. He connects to corporate Wi-Fi, and he's in a little security island that's also connected to the corporate world, while the rest of Dmitriy's dirty network, I don't want to touch that, right? That's still going out the regular internet gateway. But again, that's a more hardware-centric solution, right? And it's suitable for maybe finance, HR, kind of what you consider high-value targets, where it's financially reasonable to roll out a piece of hardware. If you have a 10,000-person organization, I don't know if people would send out 10,000 access points like that to every employee.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about something about the hardware development. Do you see any other kind of hardware-based solutions being designed to address the work at home situation? Because you say they won't roll out 10,000, but maybe if it was low cost enough, maybe they would.
Yeah, or maybe an agent-based solution, right, where you're installing an agent.
And that's where, and you know what, that's exactly the direction of the whole SASE conversation. I'm not trying to be sassy on the call here, but we're talking about SASE, the new hot acronym in cybersecurity that stands for Secure Access Service Edge. And the idea here is I connect with an agent to a cloud service, and all security gets done in the cloud. And that security might mean VPN, it might mean firewall, it might mean inbound firewall, outbound firewall access. The point is, I might be on a dumb device and I connect with that client to a cloud service, and the cloud service then access my access broker as my security gateway, as everything. It's the secure access service edge now. And that's one of the solutions. Now, it's an emerging technology. It's something that it's suitable for some businesses, not other businesses. And some may say, well, that's still a piece of software. As an engineer, computers are built, it's like a stack. And if I can compromise something at a lower stack than where you operate, I effectively own everything above my layer. So with software solutions, there will be resistance still, because there will be people who will say, well, that's just a piece of software. So if I get a kernel level, or if I get an OS level exploit on your system, then it doesn't matter what sort of client software you may run, right? And that's where we get into the tech debates.
So, Dmitry, the stuff we were talking about before in terms of segregating out the corporate traffic and putting it on its own network with its own hardware and so on, that might be a good example of something else I wanted to talk about, which is, again, we're 1 year in. What kinds of cybersecurity lessons has the industry learned in this past year that people in our audience should be aware of and embracing themselves?
Yeah, I'll just come back to, I have to say that the top lesson has been the importance of multi-factor authentication for everyone, and everything else kind of and I'm telling this to you as a vendor who doesn't sell multi-factor authentication, right? I just cannot stress the importance of enabling it on every product that you have, on every service that you have in this distributed world. The whole, like, we've been talking about castles and moats and all those analogies in the security world for a decade. I mean, talk about the year when the dissolution of the moat and the castle has really, really happened, right? There is no more perimeter, right? And this is where credentials are guarding identities, safeguarding credentials. That's one of the biggest lessons. Everything else, again, segregated access, endpoint security, that's just kind of general hygiene. The biggest winner, or winner is not the right term, I would say the biggest visibility technology has been MFA. I don't know, Brian, if you agree with that, but that's just kind of my observation. Everything else there's been so many other things that they kind of all blur into the background for me.
Yeah, MFA, and we also focus on least privilege too, because you don't want, especially even API connections. I find a lot of API connections out there, they're granting more rights than they even need, especially into the Microsoft environment now. Be careful when you're clicking that, oh, cool, I've got the convenience of pulling my user and device list or having this integration with my Microsoft tenant now. Question what permissions they're actually giving that service account, because I found almost half of them I come across, I'm tweaking afterwards because they're taking too many permissions. And then even with end users, think of it as a way as they should only have access to things they need to do their job, right? If they have access to things that they don't even need to do their job, and they get compromised somehow, even MFA can be compromised if you don't have the right type of MFA setup, then you're giving that threat actor access to things they normally wouldn't have had if you were using a least privilege model.
Yeah, and that is like the English version of what I said earlier, the zero trust, right? I can't, that's a huge point there. If you grant Dmitry access to the network to connect with VPN, why, and he only needs to access his desktop, why would he also be able to scan the entire network and access every other host, right? That's the point, is like isolate, just if Dmitry only uses his desktop, allow him to only access his desktop, period. So then if Dmitry's computer gets Trojan tomorrow, or there is ransomware or whatever, right, he's isolated. Yes, there's damage, but the damage is contained. And why would you not do that, right? So thank you, Brian, for highlighting that as well.
So we've been talking big picture kind of issues, but before we let you go, I want to talk about something just torn from the headlines, if you will. As we record this, we're maybe a weekish into the world having learned about the Hafnium issue or Hafnium exploit of Microsoft Exchange, which initially we were told was going to be a very small problem for a small set of customers. It's really looking like it's much more widespread. What kind of advice can you offer our audience right now about acting on this threat for their clients?
I would say number one, if you're listening to this and you haven't patched your Exchange server, hang up right now and go patch it before you do anything else. This is, in my opinion, bigger than the SolarWinds attack, because the SolarWinds attack was extremely targeted, it's a very insidious attack. But again, if you look at who has been attacked, it's organizations that have the resources to respond. And again, the damage is massive, but the response will be there. This Exchange attack is insane, right? Right now, there are active scans on the internet of every Exchange server that is exposed to the internet, which is part of his job, and mass exploitation. And they're going to be companies, I guarantee you, that 3 months from now will discover that they've been breached, because they didn't even, sometimes small organizations, we kind of like to joke that the janitor is also the IT person, right? And they might not pay attention to it, but they just got their keys to the kingdom. One of the keys to the kingdom is stolen. This attack is absolutely massive. I think it's going to have a bigger impact and longer lasting impact than the SolarWinds attack. Again, just from the perspective of how much response resources are going to be able to be allocated to it. In terms of preventing it, I mean, it's a nasty 0 day. It's a chain of actually several 0 days, right? And unless you were doing things like SSL decryption for all incoming traffic and running WAF and intrusion prevention, go patch immediately. It's huge. And then there are a lot of resources right now around the IOCs. So once you've patched, you have to also go through and ensure that you don't have any of the indicators of compromise, meaning that any of the files left behind. One of the things that this attack does is it leaves a reverse web shell. And what that means is, what the attackers did is they were slowly exploiting. Then Microsoft dropped this patch, and when they just dropped this patch, this attack went into overdrive. If you read the headlines, it's absolute reckless for a nation state type of exploitation, mass exploitation. And what they're doing right now is just smash, but instead of just smash and grab, what they're saying is smash and leave, I don't know what the analogy is, steal the key, but leave a way to get back in, so that they can get back in later, even if after the system is patched. They can still get back in later and rummage around and find a way to, whatever they were looking for. So it's make sure that you patch, but then also ensure that that web shell and whatever other backdoors that may have been left behind are eliminated. So eject them from your network. But I say, if you're running an Exchange server and you're listening to this and you haven't patched, drop everything. This is your top priority right now. This is an enormous attack.
And by that, Dmitry, means stop what you're doing and go patch. Don't actually drop like your phone on the ground.
Please don't. That might create some more problems. but it is the absolute top priority. I'm kind of joking, but in every joke there is a part of joke and part truth, right? And this is one of those things where there are few attacks that come across that have the type of breadth and depth and impact, and this is one of them. This one will be for the books. We reflect back and we talk Target, Equifax, Stuxnet, OPM. This one will be in the books as well.
Wow, excellent stuff. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. So a couple of really good takeaways there. One, multi-factor authentication, right? If you're, as you said, if your castle and moat are your moat's taken away and you have no perimeter, you gotta take your alligators and string them up outside the castle, even online. So do that with multi-factor authentication, and take this Exchange threat seriously and make sure that you are patched. So, well, great having you here, Dmitry. Thank you so much for being on. For people who want to learn a little bit more about you, get in touch with you, and learn more about SonicWall, where can they go?
SonicWall.com. Or, the other resource I like to advertise is livedemo.sonicwall.com. All of our products are on the live demo. You can click around, what I like to say, do the taste test, but don't actually lick your monitor.
Well, that's some people's Saturday nights, man.
You might. After we
Good
hang
stuff.
up.
And then Dmitry, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you directly, how would they be able to do that?
I'm on LinkedIn. I have minor. I'm mostly in listen-only mode on Twitter, but I'm primarily on LinkedIn. And I also maintain I maintain the SonicWall subreddit. So /r SonicWall. I'm SonicWall_PM user there. So if you call for me on the SonicWall subreddit, shine the Batman light. I'll come in.
Awesome stuff. Well, thank you again so much for being on. I hope you had fun, and I hope to get you back again down the road. We're going to take a short break. Yep, great. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, Brian Weiss will still be with us on the other side, and we'll wrap up the show with some of our regular end of the show features and maybe a little bit of 5 questions. We'll have to see how time goes. So stick around for that, and we will be right back. All right, and welcome back to part 3 here of this episode of ChannelPro Weekly. Rich, an amazing interview with Dmitry. It went a little longer than they normally do, but I mean, oh my gosh, security is just so top of mind right now, and by far probably the biggest thing that not only small MSPs are dealing with, but the largest ones as well, all the way up into the enterprise space. So I got a lot out of that. Rich, what did you get out of that interview?
I mean, a lot. His insights in general are obviously very interesting, but the thing that really struck me was how emphatic he was about the exchange issue and the scale of that vulnerability. That this is bigger than SolarWinds. I think I understood that this was a big deal. I may have been underestimating how big a deal it is, just given the degree of alarm that he was expressing there. It's sobering.
Yeah. Brian, any takeaways from that interview?
I'd love to see vendors like SonicWall help us with our work from home struggles. That's a big issue for MSPs. The exchange, I would like to echo what Rich said on the exchange front there. I didn't realize it was as big of an issue. I definitely feel for all the MSPs out there. We were lucky enough to be in a situation where we don't currently have any clients with in-house exchange. They're all Office 365. But learning more about that, I realize now that I'm going to go reach out on some of these forums where people have been talking about it and help echo how serious it is to make sure they're not dilly-dallying around, if you will, of actually addressing the situation for sure.
Yeah, it was interesting when he said that they didn't really realize how damaging it's going to be until they started trying to patch it and remediate it. And then it goes kind of out of this slow mode into this big giant, do as much damage as you can and carve a big hole in the side of the building on your way out so you can get back in. That's scary stuff for sure.
He mentioned that reverse web shell technology that plays a part in burrowing more permanently into the system. And there is a blog post that Huntress published last week about this, and that came to mind as he was talking about that, because at that point in time, Microsoft was still saying it's a relatively small number of customers who are going to be affected by this. And the Huntress folks said, we don't think that's true, because they were searching on environments supported by their customers and finding that reverse web shell hidden in a lot of them. So yeah, a lot of companies impacted by this.
Yeah, I think one other key takeaway too to understand why this is bigger than SolarWinds is the idea that the SolarWinds does affect more larger enterprise companies that have the resources to respond properly, whereas this is affecting companies of all size, whoever has an in-house exchange server, and they just don't have the resources to respond as effectively. So we're going to ultimately see, a fair amount of damage come out of this.
Yeah, scary stuff, and we'll have to keep checking in and seeing what that damage is over time as we get a full idea of what the scope is and how much it's going to do. So crazy stuff, and a big thanks to Dmitry for joining us. Hopefully we get him back again. Rich, we've got some normal end of the show stuff we normally do. I think in the interest of time, since we're running a little long, we're going to skip museum pick and tech pick this week, which is fine. We'll bring that back next week, because one thing I really want to do is I really want to have a round of 5 questions with our friend Brian. Brian, are you familiar with 5 questions?
No, but that's probably better. I'm not familiar with it, right?
It might be. So it's a fun recurring segment we do here. Basically, how it works: Rich and I will come up with 5 questions off the top of our head. We usually go back and forth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It could be about anything and everything. Guaranteed to be something probably not on topic at all, but nothing embarrassing, no gotchas. We're not. It's not about that, but it's just about to have a little fun and to learn a little bit more about you. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, Rich. I'm feeling generous today. Question number 1 to you.
Okay. So I have only been to San Luis Obispo once, Brian, but I still remember it vividly, and this will make more sense to you than to a lot of people. But I was driving south on the 101 highway, and I knew, because I had a map next to me, I should be arriving at San Luis Obispo right around now. And I'm looking around and I'm not seeing it. I climbed up a hill. I don't know if this is familiar. And then when I came over the top of the hill, it was magical. It was like Shangri-La. There's San Luis Obispo, this sort of jewel that comes out of nowhere. And I was only able to stay for a few hours. I had lunch. I wandered around a little bit. When I get back, what is the thing that every visitor to San Luis Obispo should do?
Wow. So it's a rural area. San Luis Obispo has about, a population of, I think they're up to 60,000 maybe now, and a good fair amount of that is college students. And so, during the summertime, there's not a lot of college students, so the town doesn't seem as packed. And so I would say, the downtown culture is really nice, although COVID unfortunately has impacted that a bit. Our biggest economy is tourism. So, we've got plenty of outdoor activities, hikes, trails. We've got several different beaches that are, 15 minutes away from San Luis Obispo up and down the coast. We've got Hearst Castle up north. We've got, the Paso Robles city, which is about 25 minutes north, which has really been known for a mini Napa Valley now with all the wine that it has, and it's got its own little downtown. You head 20 miles south of San Luis Obispo, you've got Pismo Beach with the Pismo Beach Pier, with one of the last beaches you can actually drive on as well, which I always love doing anytime I can get there. So it's just, there's a huge variety of things. You're not going to find a lot of things that you would find in a big city, right? And so don't expect to come there and do big city things. It's really more of a relaxing, area that, I think Oprah even deemed it at one point in time the happiest city in America. We got a lot of publicity from that and extra tourism. So yeah, it's and the greatest thing about it too is the weather. We've got several mountain ranges. You talked about the grade is the one you drove over. The Cuesta grade is what it's called. And because of the how close things are to the coast, but yet we have these big mountain ranges kind of separating different cities, you could drive 20 minutes and have a 20 to 30 degree change in temperature. So I live a little bit inland. I live in Templeton, right next to Paso Robles. And, we'll have a hot 105 degree day. I'll drive to San Luis and it's 80 degrees, 20 miles away. And then, in Templeton, we've got this, we call it the Templeton Gap, which is a gap in the mountain range. If you shoot straight out, you're in like Cambria, where it could be really hot all day. And then once that evening breeze hits, we get this rush of coastal air that just cools down everything. So you get these most amazing evenings in the North County area, which is what helps the grapes so much, right? They have these really hot days and then they get cooled down, at night, which is great for wine. So, if you're looking for a place to get away from a big city environment and, be close to the coast, and have, different temperatures depending on where you're going, lots of sightseeing, it's definitely a great area.
Very cool. Very interesting. It's funny when I hear somebody talk about a small city and they say like 60,000, and then I think about the area I live in and like, we're barely pushing 5,000 people where I'm at. So definitely scale is relative for sure.
Well, and one thing to keep in mind too is that it's very spread out, right? So, and like probably a good 20,000 of those people are college students. So yeah.
Interesting stuff. Okay, I will have question number 2. So earlier you mentioned that you were a big SimCity fan, which is a game that I also really like. So I would like you to rate all of the SimCity games and tell us which is your bottom, which is your top. So SimCity Classic, SimCity 2000, SimCity 3000, SimCity 4, and the newer SimCity game that they released. Which one is your favorite? Which one is your least favorite, and why?
So for nostalgia purposes, I'm going to go with the SimCity that came out. I think it was on Super Nintendo, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Just because I spent countless hours. Yes, I see you have one in the back there. Oh, he's even got the cartridge. All right. There we go. Yes, that's it. Now you're
so actually I have
Yeah.
a boxed copy of it, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Original box and manual.
So I learned, hundreds of different ways to build cities, the right way, the wrong way on that. I just spent countless hours. So that's the one that really sticks true with me. I would say SimCity 2000, right, was when they had out. That was the last one that I really played a lot of and liked. I have kind of these gaps in playing games like this because they are so time intensive. And it has to do with, busy parts of my life where I'm doing things. There's a point in time when I started ITECH, I was also a DJ. So my nights were busy as well as my days. But most recently, I actually picked up City Skylines on Steam. And that's one that I played and kind of felt like I liked it better than the SimCity franchise with a lot of aspects it had about it. So I wish I could answer your question on each one, but unfortunately I don't have experience on each one. Hopefully that was a good enough answer for you.
It is, yeah. I spent a lot of time on the Super Nintendo version, also a very good version. I think overall I would say my favorite was SimCity 4. Was probably my favorite SimCity game. I didn't like the new one that they put out. I much prefer City Skylines over that one. But if you've never played SimCity 4, it really was, I think, it's worth playing. And I will connect with you offline and we will make that happen. Rich, question number 3, over to you.
So, my first question was, what should I do when I come to San Luis Obispo? Second question to you, what's the first thing that you want to do once it's possible to do whatever you want? So once we really are past any kind of COVID-related travel restrictions, what's the first thing that you look forward to being able to do again?
Sitting down in a restaurant. I've got several favorite restaurants here that, if you don't go at the right time, there's this huge wait line because they're at a lower occupancy, right? So that's one I would say, but even more important than that is camping. I love camping. I love being out on a lake. I love being out on a boat. I love fishing. And, when COVID first hit, I thought, well, good thing, my vacation type is like camping because it's out in the open and there shouldn't be any restrictions. But unfortunately, and sure enough, there was. And a lot of it had to do with just the public facilities that these campgrounds have and the fact that people gather in a close place, so I'm definitely looking forward to just being able to plan a camping trip. I literally bought a camper in 2019, and we did a fair amount of kind of test trips, right? Because I'm new to camping, and then we were going to outline for 2020 kind of a cross-country trip during the summer, because I also have a desk in my camper where I can work. And yes, I'm a workaholic, so I can't really relax unless I get a little bit of work done in the morning. And so it was like, this is the perfect vacation. I just take my office with me, my family, we go sightseeing, and then sure enough, COVID hit. So I've got this camper that's itching to go check out more camp spots along with my family that I'm hesitant to try to plan something and get our hopes up and then have them crushed. So that's probably the number one thing on my list. And there's lots of camping even locally. Like I don't even have to go cross country. There's a lot of camping opportunities here locally.
Very, very good. All right, I will do question number 4. Rich, I don't know if I have a good one. Let me think. Okay, so you said you like camping. What is the controversial now? What is the correct way to start a campfire?
Oh, you got to go TP all the way. Yeah, for sure. In fact, a buddy of mine I just went camping with last. He, what's his method? The block stack method or whatever. And he's like, oh, mine's better. And then he tried to start his, it wouldn't start. And let me show you how it's done. You know, you did the teepee with thin wood, right? No big logs, and then the paper inside, and that takes off every time.
Smart stuff. You're gonna get some hate mail from that response. I guarantee you. All right, Rich. Question number 5 to you.
Oh boy. Boy, this is as random gets. But favorite late night talk show host?
Oh wow. I don't really watch talk show hosts anymore. Especially since they got so political. That's part of the issue. If I had to think back, maybe David Letterman, back when I used to actually watch talk shows. I also liked, I forget his last name, Colin, the guy with the funny hair. It's always
Conan O'Brien or
Conan
Yeah,
O'Brien.
yeah.
I don't know why I said Colin. Yes, Conan O'Brien is another one. Yeah.
Classic Conan is good. Yeah, I find most of them all pretty insufferable to watch these days. Around here though, I don't know about your area, but around here they still play like classic episodes of like Johnny Carson, Tonight Show.
Oh wow.
And they get good ratings from what I understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about that? Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for playing 5 questions. Always fun to learn a little bit more about people. So Rich, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell us what we might have missed and what might be coming up in the week ahead.
Yeah, well, if you want to know what you might have missed there, the thing to do is read our In Case You Missed It post. It appears on ChannelProNetwork.com every Friday. Written by our own James Gaskin. This week, James is going to be talking about Thoma Bravo's latest blockbuster acquisition. We were talking about acquisitions before. Thoma Bravo is a private equity firm. They own ConnectWise and Barracuda, et cetera, et cetera. They have just made another security-related purchase for $2.4 billion this week. You'll read a little bit more about that. Some new security functionality from Sophos and from Keeper. A new VP of product and engineering for BitTitan. And you may have seen this elsewhere in the news too. Fisher-Price, the children's toy maker, has introduced a remote work toy set, like a little fake laptop and headset and coffee cup, because it's never too early to indoctrinate your kids in the hell from or the hell of working 24/7 at home, and they want to play along. Now, look at next week is going to be enormous, actually. So CompTIA is doing its annual Communities and Councils Forum. The CCF event is happening next week online. The ASCII Group is doing its first U.S. MSP Connect Live event. They did one for Canadian members within the last few weeks, but first one for U.S. members happens next week. The first 5 stops on that Channel Strong road trip that you were talking about before take place next week. And the Business Technology Alliance is doing their spring break show. This is mostly for the copy and print channel. But what's interesting about this event to me is that it's taking place in person in Orlando. I can't even remember the last time I was hearing about an in-person event. It's kind of nice, actually, to hear that that's just beginning to happen again. And then there will be some hardware news next week that I'm sure we'll be talking about in the podcast, and I can't say more than that.
Ooh, interesting. It's funny, Rich. You talk about that Fisher-Price set, and it's hilarious because a lot of kids have basically lived the remote work at home experience for their school for the last year.
That's true.
So it's like, why they don't even need to buy the play set. They already live it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But now, Brian, I do think there's opportunity, though. We need to get in touch with Fisher-Price and come up with the My Little MSP set and figure out what things that we could add to that. So, like, what would you put in a My Little MSP set?
Definitely caffeine.
You know, like, and you can maybe sell like the sock accessory. There could
Yeah.
be, you know, the network scanner accessory that makes little noises when it scans the networks.
You've got to get the, you know, I keep thinking, you know, whenever I hear IT service, I always think of the Saturday Night Live skit, the angry IT guy, or the, you know, that's like, move, get out of the way. You know, you got to have some sort of, I don't know, you know, we're going back to kind of Revenge of Nerds, but you've got like the pocket pencil, you know, thing, if you want to go there. I don't know. I'm thinking off the top of my head here, but yeah, that'd be interesting.
This could be $1 million idea.
Yeah, my daughter, you know, expresses all the time, I'm going to run ITECH when I get older. I'm going to run ITECH. So it's making me think, what kind of toys could I get her now that makes her feel like she's part of the team? Yeah.
We'll devise our own and get it out on the market next week. Very good stuff. Brian Weiss, ladies and gentlemen, CEO of the ITECH Solutions. Thank you so much for being on. I hope you had fun.
Yes, I did actually. I'd love to come back sometime for sure.
We'd love to have you back. For those who wanted to maybe get in touch with you, learn more about you, where can they go? Where can they find you?
On LinkedIn, Brian Weiss, WEISS. Also our website, ITECH, ITECH-solutions.com.
Fantastic stuff. And we'll make sure we put those on our show notes page for episode 178. And a big thanks again. And we do hope we get you back someday soon. And how will you know if Brian comes back as a guest host? You need to subscribe to the ChannelPro Weekly Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, anywhere where podcasts are found. You can find us there. If you like to watch, and we do love it when you watch, you can find us on YouTube, subscribe to our channel there, hit the red button and the little bell, and then you'll get all the notifications. Podcast@channelpronetwork.com is email address. Send us your thoughts, ideas, topics you want us to cover, anything and anything you want Rich to actually verbally say. He will say it. You just got to send it in an email, and just promise me it's going to be as embarrassing as possible. ChannelProNetwork.com is the website. Make sure you go there each and every day. Set it as your bookmark. There you're going to find all the latest news, articles, information, podcasts, resources, downloads, white papers, all kinds of stuff to help make your business better and help you grow and be successful. So we definitely want to see you there each and every day. Big thanks to our guest host, Brian Weiss, as well as our interview guest, Dmitriy. I'm going to try again. Ayrapetov. I got it, Rich. I got it. Oh, I was really trying hard not to screw that one up. So big thanks again to him for being on, and we will see everybody in episode 179 next week. See you then.